All right, here we go. What is going on, guys, from the Bleachers Sports Show? Here we are doing a little segment that I want to introduce to the channel. The channel prior was all wrestling. It was a wrestling channel before. Then I kind of changed things up and I started talking all sports because at that point wouldn't say my fandom for wrestling changed. It's just I don't know, always was and always will be a wrestling fan. It's just you go through spurts, and there was periods of time where I wasn't following it as closely. I wouldn't watch every show or every hour or per minute, and wasn't following up on the news, so it really didn't make a whole lot of sense to continue to cover something if you're not well informed. So, I kind of started sprinkling in wrestling videos here and there, and kind of focused on other mainstream sports. Hockey, basketball, baseball, UFC, which you could all watch on this channel. So I decided to bring this back, and I don't know what type of segment, what this segment will be called. I remember I used to do a podcast on Talk Shoe way back when, one of the millions and millions of podcasters. So and I love doing it. Back then it was on Talk Shoe, and so it's a hobby. So that's exactly what I want to do. I want to do something eventually where maybe I could do this kind of live stream, and then do a live stream version. So I might do live stream every once in a while, or you might see this done like this, which is just me shooting the crap as I'm making my commute back home from my regular job. So this is nothing professional, this is unedited, this is done from my cell phone. So as is, this is how you will see it. So sorry, there's not going to be any fancy lighting. It's going to be dark most of the time. Because this is the best time that I could do this, with other responsibilities. But yeah, I mean, this is just me giving my wrestling opinions, and that's exactly what they are. They're wrestling opinions. And I'm not right, I'm not wrong. The same goes for you. You're not right, you're not wrong. We all have our opinions, and sometimes it's best to agree to disagree, as the saying goes. But as far as my wrestling fandom, I'm going to be 39 in a couple of months. Grew up on the East Coast, live on the East Coast. So for me, as a kid growing up, it was Superstars on Channel 9 and 5, I believe, here in New York locally. It was on Saturdays and Sundays. Superstars. That's what I grew up on, way before you had the Monday Night Wars. So even as a kid watching wrestling since I was about 5 years old. So I've been watching wrestling now. I've been a wrestling fan for what? 33 years, 34 years. Something like that if my math is right? So not only did I grow up on WWF, but I also watched on VHS tapes of NWA. That's right, NWA. AWA, World Class Championship Wrestling. Man, as a kid, I loved wrestling. loved it. And, so I love WWF is what I grew up on. Also watching a lot of old school wrestling. So that's why if you look at this channel, you see a lot of like old school videos I talk about from the AWA, WWF, old school from years gone by. So I like talking about that as well. And as I was a teenager during the Monday Night Wars, quote unquote, I'll be honest with you, I always used to, like everyone else, used to switch back and forth between the TV, see what was going on. There were times during that period where I would, stay focused on one program more than I would the other. I think for me, if I had to pick, if I was I a WWF guy or a WCW guy during the Monday Night Wars, I would probably tell you I was a WCW guy, even though I watched both. I was a WCW guy because the wrestlers I grew up on, Macho Man, Rowdy Piper, Hulk Hogan, and then as I was getting older, you had, guys like Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Razor, Diesel, they were there. So I was more of a WCW guy, even though I watched both, right? So, used to go to house shows in Madison Square Garden. If you grew up in the New York region, you know that the house shows were actually televised. The house shows from MSG were televised on the MSG network. So I remember watching that growing up as a kid. I remember going to Nassau Coliseum for house shows, MSG for house shows. So I've been invested in wrestling for quite some time. So this, when I don't know if I'm going to do this weekly or every other week. Either way, hit that little bell, that way you could see when I post up all my videos. And these set of videos will be based on topics that I didn't cover earlier in the week. Now, some of this might be already old news, but oh well, just giving my 2 cents on it. So I will still make my news and rumors videos early on in the week, throughout the week, my old school videos. But this is kind of just covering, trying to put everything, trying to fit 5 pounds of bologna in a 1 pound bag, trying to cover everything that in one video that I wasn't able to cover in the beginning of the week until now. And there are quite a few things that I want to cover, and you're always welcome to leave your comments down below. So let me stop blabbering and get into a couple of things. The first thing that made news was the Saudi Arabia trip. I guess you could say hindsight is 20/20, and I didn't make a video, or I didn't comment on it earlier in the week, so you might say, well, easier said than done to have that type of opinion now. But, and since then, various stories have come out about what actually happened on that trip to Saudi Arabia. If you were reading tweets on the matter, it's as if the whole world was falling apart. And I get it why maybe some people felt it that way just based on reading those tweets. And really what it turned out to be was just a case of, mechanical problems on the plane, fuel problems. That's really just a normal, typical flight delay is what it really turned out to be. And if you think about it, if you think about that, from the beginning, I kind of thought to myself, whoa, hold on. And this is what I thought, and that's why I don't like to do like a lot of videos on gossip and all that stuff, because you don't know how factual it is. A lot of these dirt sheets and a lot of these reporters just really don't have their facts and their sources. Sometimes it's better just to hear it from the horse's mouth, like we heard it through Corey Graves on his podcast, and AJ Styles, what he said in a recent interview. Yeah, I mean, and if you think about it, if it was anything more than what a lot of people were speculating, they were speculating that as if these wrestlers were hostages. That was the speculation, that the narrative that a lot of folks on the internet was writing. If that was the case, guys, it would have been published. It would have been a story on all major news networks, CNN, Fox, but it never was. It never was. WWE is a publicly traded company. They never, they would have to, I'm sure, disclose that type of information to its stockholders. They never did any of that. They never disclosed any information about this being something more than what they said it was. And they just renegotiated or re-signed another deal, extending that deal for a significant amount of time with the Saudi government. So why are, point being, sometimes we have to sit back, take in all the information before we run and rush and make a judgment. Now, I could see some people were, I guess, upset if I'm getting the story right, which I think I am. Some wrestlers were upset that some got chartered away first before others. The way it was explained is they were trying to usher out those people first. That way they can make SmackDown on Friday. And that makes sense. And listen, I feel bad for the people that were stuck. And they were complaining, some of the talent, I get it. They wanted to go home. They were in a foreign country. They wanted to be in their own bed. They were stuck. Seemed like there was a little bit of lack of communication, exactly what was going on. But listen, the fact of the matter is, whether you want to believe the story that they were trying to rush people to make that SmackDown taping or not, fact is that there's always a pecking order, and no matter in what facet of life we're in, there is a pecking order, whether it be the workplace, socially, there is pecking orders, and certain people have earned that right to be treated differently than others. So it may not be right, but it is what it is. So even if in fact the quote-unquote the 20 that were able to get out first check it out first. Hey, they earned it. A guy like Brock Lesnar, a guy like Hulk Hogan, a guy like Ric Flair, they're going to get special treatment because of their name recognition. And one day, maybe one of those people that were not on the first charter, but were on the second charter, will maybe earn that as well one day. But listen, hey, that's just part of life, a pecking order. So I think, like have you ever guys played telephone as a kid? Telephone, where you tell one story to a person on the telephone, and then that person has to tell the same story to the other person on the other end of the phone the exact same way that you told it to them. And you know that's never usually the case, that a story gets changed as time goes on. So I think that's kind of what happened here. A lot of the story was lost in translation, and I think a lot of the wrestlers were just a little bit unheightened, on pins and needles, a little bit scared because of the country that they were in. But listen, if they were on their iPhones and Androids tweeting, if things were that bad, if they were hostages, if they were under some type of stress, sure, you would not be able to use your phone. So let's all relax and not believe everything that we hear on the internet. Now, I will like to hear certain things from the horse's mouth, and in this case, I will go with Corey Graves, and I will go with AJ Styles and their version of the story. Do want to talk about the actual pay-per-view crown jewel. Brock Lesnar versus Cain Velasquez. A lot of people were complaining about this match in the sense of how long it was. Honestly, guys, I don't have a problem with the way the match was presented. It's a Brock Lesnar match. You know that in general his matches are short. You know that Cain Velasquez, he's not fully seasoned yet. So to kind of do as you try to present as much as possible without overexposing someone, and I think that they did what they needed to do with Brock Lesnar and Cain Velasquez. So I didn't have a problem with that match. I remember a lot of the booking on that match didn't make any sense. Right? You might be saying, well, what's the sense of this booking of this match? Well, if you look at the history of these shows, it's for the people there of that country. So it's supposed to be like a feel-good moment. It's really whatever those people want, and that's kind of how these shows run. They never really have any rhyme or reason as to why someone wins or doesn't win. So I think that's kind of to be expected. You see Mansoor. Did you expect, like, for example, Mansoor won last year. Did you expect him to win? No. So that's kind of these attraction shows. That's what I've always expected. Like, they're almost like they're their separate show, and they don't really follow any specific storyline. Like, you have the Crown Jewel storyline, and then you have other storylines on your regular weekly program. So I don't think they're related, and I don't think they spill in 1 week, or the booking is not supposed to. I don't expect the booking to make sense. But Cesaro Mansoor probably was the match of the night there for me. Cesaro, you look at this guy, what he did with ROH, and what he's done with Chris Hero. Cesaro is one of these guys who I think Cesaro could wrestle with a broom and he would be able to make it, honestly, he'd be able to make it entertaining. He would. And, Cesaro was teamed up with Jack Swagger at one point. Cesaro was teamed up with Paul Heyman. Cesaro most recently was teamed up with Sheamus. He also was teamed up with Tyson Kidd. So, you had the Cesaro section. And there's something that's always missing with this. It seems like Cesaro will get a start of a push, then it would stop abruptly. Start, stop. And it would just continue. That would be the pattern. When I look at Cesaro, man, I think that what he's really missing is just it's just a promo. He's just missing something. Now, he had that Cesaro section and they took it away from him. He's just missing something. He's missing something. Maybe it's the lack of not being able really to do a good promo. He's just missing that connection with the fans. I think if he had that connection with the fans, there is no doubt in my mind that he would have been at least a world, some type of a heavyweight champion by now. Now you might say to me, well, which wrestler has a connection with the fans right now? What type of wrestler? Very good point. Far and few between. But I think that is what the WWE still looks for. Monday Night Raw, this past Monday Night Raw, just a few thoughts on that. Man, one thing that stands out to me from Raw is they are just continuing, really continuing. They really, I think they're doing it now out of stubbornness, where they're like, okay, we've been doing this for a couple of weeks now. Now we really got to go all in. No turning back now. In this storyline with Rusev, Lana, and Bobby Lashley. And I'm telling you what, I cannot get into the storyline. I just cannot get into it at all. I don't know what. Maybe it's a couple of things, right? Now, I know that as wrestling fans, we need to have suspension of disbelief, right? Suspension of disbelief. Well, with suspension of disbelief, I jog my memory back to, I think 2 years ago, where they were trying to do something with Rusev and Lana, trying to separate them, and I think this was done on purpose, where they ran to TMZ and just said to TMZ that they're engaged, which kind of killed that whole storyline where, Rusev and Lana were apparently on the outs, 2 years ago. Remember when Lana was with Dolph Ziggler for a period of time? That's the first time that they tried to break up Lana and Rusev in storyline. And now they're going hard with this. They're going very hard. And it's hard to separate. It's kind of hard to get into it again, because with social media now, and you see, listen, it would help too. It just seems to me that Rusev is really not giving it in his 100%, right? Where Bobby Lashley is supposedly doing these horrible, heinous things to your wife, and he kind of really does not have all that much emotion. Like, he is not frustrated. He is not. A majority of the presentation that you've seen these angles in the last couple of weeks, majority of them, probably 9 out of 10 of them, it's like he was indifferent. So he wasn't really playing up this whole, I'm angry, I'm gonna get you, Bobby Lashley thing. He was like, meh. By the way, I'm still wondering how what was Bobby Lashley doing that he injured his groin. So it doesn't help that, you have social media. Doesn't help that Rusev really it doesn't look like he's at 100, trying to make it work. And I don't know, it's just I don't know, the actors, the people, these roles that they're given, they're not able to pull it off. It's like cringy. Bobby Lashley always has this weird looking smile on his face. So it just feels weird. By the way, with those type of teeth, a guy like Bobby Lashley has, he should be a face. My goodness, that man has amazing teeth. And now you have all these other guys being thrown in here. You have Drew McIntyre being thrown into this somehow. I don't know how he plays into it. And then you have Randy Orton, who's just randomly thrown in there as well. I don't know why is he thrown in there. Maybe because he just likes giving RKOs. Maybe that's so now he's in there too. How does this all play in together? We'll find out. Bobby Lashley was not really injured. He was just acting like he was injured. So he's able to go ahead and bang Lana continuing. So no groin injury for him. And, Lana's main complaint on Rusev was that Rusev just wanted sex. But now it seems the relationship between Lana and Bobby Lashley in storyline is just about sex as well. So what is the whole end game here? If you remember in the beginning, Rusev apparently made Maria Kanellis pregnant, and then that somehow just disappeared. So what happened with that? What was the connection there? Were they just trying to tape up something that fell apart? Were these characters, were these roles supposedly for, it seems like these roles were supposedly for other people. And then they just reassign everyone these roles in this storyline, if you get what I'm saying. So this storyline just stinks. And I'll tell you what, that New York crowd there really, on Raw, really did not help any. Jeez, man. And that's the thing, like, being from the area, when you look at New York, that Long Island crowd, Long Island is about, 40 miles outside of the city. Nassau versus MSG. If you want to go anywhere, if you want to, like, where the more rabid crowd is, it's going to be MSG. You don't go to Long Island. Long Island, certain times, for the most part, they're ones to sit on their hands. So, use that for what it's worth. At that point, though, what would you say about the Viking Raiders? The Viking Raiders, man, listen, I remember a couple months ago, a lot of people were talking about their name. Well, listen, that is the most traction that they got, the most response that they got. It was when we were discussing what their name should be. And that's the most that you ever heard out of these guys, the Viking Raiders. I don't know what it is. Prior weeks they were getting a courtesy reaction. Last week on Monday, not so much. I like from Raw, just the other thing too, I like the main event. I like Seth Rollins versus Adam Cole. I liked it. I'm liking the invasion angle that they will have. Like it. Can't complain. I think this has good potential. And now on this, video cast, or whatever you want to call it, podcast, cover everything, right? So I watch everything. Want to say congratulations to Randy Orton, who's just re-signed a new deal with WWE, another 5 years, I believe. So he's 39 right now. Will be wrestling till he's 44. Right now he's pretty much just only working TV. He's not working any house shows. So good for Randy Orton. I'm a big fan of Randy Orton. The Viper was teasing us all, or trolling us on Instagram a couple weeks ago. And the thing with me with Randy Orton, love his finisher. Did he take it from DDP? He put his little spin on it, but we see all these rejuvenation of finishers over the years, so that's all right. It's all right. He's become a little stale to me. That's one thing I'll say about Randy Orton. A little stale. He's going to be here now for the next 5 years. One thing I could tell you about Randy Orton is he's been on the top plenty of times. He's been on that top of that ladder, and I've been in some great groups. Legacy, Evolution, very good in Evolution. I liked them in Evolution. I would have liked to see what could have happened, but it seems like the revival and him as a group has been kind of nixed. I think that the Revival and Randy Orton could have been a formidable faction. I think factions are good. It helps kind of mask the weaknesses of others, and I think you need to have the full package here, and I think promo plays a big part of it as well. They're not bad in the Revival, but they need some type of someone to bounce off of. That way they can get some type of reaction. Because right now they're, to me they're still not over. Can Randy Orton put those guys over? I believe he could. And make them more respectable. I think part of the problem with the Revival is why people don't take him seriously is because they were, they lost a lot of matches. What they were doing in NXT is completely different than what happened when they were called up to the main roster. So they lost a lot of their shine from NXT, right away. But yeah, I mean, Randy Orton, he could, be a good kind of figurehead of a faction, I think. Help get these some of these guys over, and give Randy Orton kind of a new look, kind of a new fresh feel to him. Randy Orton, when he was with the Wyatts, that was pretty bad, guys. That was pretty bad. If I look at Orton now, maybe who could use Orton, on the current roster besides the Revival? It's a good question. You know what? This might be an odd pairing, but it could work because they're both diabolical. I think Aleister Black could definitely use some help from Randy Orton. Them two, being a formidable as a tag team, just kind of playing mind games with the whole roster, being sick, diabolical, evil, mind fucking you. That's, I think, what that would be a good pairing. Because honestly, what is Aleister Black right now? Do you guys know? I definitely do not know what to make of Aleister Black. AEW. Everyone is talking about Cody Rhodes and his promo. Couple of things with that promo. Is it the Hard Times? Is this the equivalent of Cody Rhodes' Hard Times promo? Well, I don't know about that. Was it a good promo? Definitely a good promo. I mean, The Rock says it was a great promo.